September 12th, 1943, 6:30. The sun climbs slowly over the valley, touching first the church bell tower that rises 42 meters above the village square. Inside that tower, Marcel Fontaine stands in darkness, his calloused hands resting on the great bell's bronze surface. His fingers trace patterns in the metal, reading the casting marks like a blind man reading text. He knows every imperfection in this bell, every bubble in the bronze, every hairline crack that has developed over 300 years. He knows this because he has been the village bell ringer for 34 years. Because his father was bell ringer before him for 41 years. Because the Fontaine family has maintained this bell since 1792. What the Germans occupying Saint-Julien do not know, what the Luftwaffe reconnaissance pilots who fly over this valley 3 times weekly cannot possibly suspect, is that Marcel Fontaine has spent the last 8 months developing a communication system using the church bell, a code hidden inside the normal pattern of hourly chimes, a warning system that sounds exactly like traditional bell ringing to anyone who does not know what to listen for. In 40 minutes, German bombers will approach this valley. 12 Heinkel He-111 aircraft carrying high-explosive ordnance intended to destroy the railway bridge 3 kilometers south of the village. The bridge is a strategic target. The bombing is legitimate warfare by the brutal mathematics of 1943. But the Germans have made an error in their navigation planning, an error that will send their bombs not toward the bridge, but directly toward Saint-Julien, toward the village square where morning market is assembling, toward 300 civilians who have no shelters, no air raid sirens, no warning system because the Germans confiscated all radios 8 months ago. Marcel does not yet know the bombers are coming, but he has spent every morning for 8 months preparing for this exact scenario. He has taught 23 villagers to understand his code. He has practiced emergency sequences until the timing is perfect. He has turned a 17th century church bell into a weapon of civilian defense. And in 38 minutes, when he hears the distant drone of Luftwaffe engines, he will have approximately 4 minutes to ring a pattern complex enough to communicate specific information, loud enough to reach the entire valley, fast enough to give people time to run. The Germans stationed in the village will hear the bell. They will hear the same pattern they have heard every morning for 8 months. They will hear nothing unusual. The villagers who have learned Marcel's echo code will hear something entirely different. They will hear precise instructions, direction of attack, time until impact, where to shelter. All of this encoded in the overtones and rhythm of a bell that has called this village to prayer for 3 centuries. Sometimes survival is not about weapons or resistance networks or radio communications. Sometimes survival is about a 61-year-old bellmaker who understands acoustic physics, who knows that bronze bells do not simply ring, they speak, and who has spent 8 months teaching his village to listen. The question is not whether Marcel can ring the warning pattern quickly enough. The question is whether 4 minutes is enough time to empty a market square, whether 300 people can understand and react before 12 tons of high-explosive ordnance erases Saint-Julien-sur-Loire from the map. The morning feels peaceful. The bread smells good. The sun is rising. Marcel's hands rest on cool bronze. In 37 minutes, everything will depend on whether people remember what he taught them, whether they believe what they hear, whether a bell can speak loudly enough to overcome the sound of approaching death. Understanding Marcel's echo code requires understanding how bells actually function. Most people believe a bell produces a single tone. This is incorrect. A bronze bell struck properly produces at least 7 distinct frequencies simultaneously. The strike tone, the loudest frequency, what people recognize as the bell's primary note. The hum tone, a lower frequency that resonates after the strike tone fades. Multiple overtones, higher frequencies that give each bell its unique voice. The problem with using bells for complex communication is that traditional bell ringing methods, pulling a rope to swing the entire bell, produce inconsistent strikes. The tone varies with swing speed and clapper angle. You cannot reliably control which overtones dominate. Marcel does not swing the bell, he strikes it. Using wooden mallets of different densities, hitting specific points on the bell's inner surface. This technique allows him to emphasize specific overtones while suppressing others. By varying strike location, mallet hardness, and rhythm, he can create patterns that sound like normal ringing to untrained ears, but carry encoded information to anyone who knows what to listen for. He developed this technique by accident in January 1943. The bell rope had frozen, ice coating the fibers. Marcel needed to ring the morning hour but could not swing the bell safely. He climbed into the tower with a mallet used for testing bronze castings. He struck the bell directly. The sound was different, sharper, the overtones more pronounced. He experimented throughout that winter morning, striking different points, using different mallets. He discovered he could make the bell speak words. Not literally, but through rhythm and tone variation that approached linguistic complexity. By February, he had developed a basic vocabulary. 3 rapid strikes on the lower hemisphere, danger approaching. 2 strikes on the upper rim followed by silence, all clear. 5 strikes, alternating high and low, take shelter immediately. He began teaching villagers during Sunday services, speaking quietly while the German occupation troops stood outside. He told people he was explaining bell maintenance, historical bell ringing techniques, cultural preservation. The Germans were not interested. They cared about compliance, not culture. By April, 23 villagers understood the basic code. By June, Marcel had expanded the vocabulary to include directional information, duration estimates, and threat classification. The teaching method was ingenious. He invited small groups to the tower, ostensibly to see the historic bell. He would demonstrate different striking techniques, ask people to describe what they heard, correct their interpretations. It appeared educational, it was training, the key was consistency. Every morning at 6:30, Marcel performed a practice sequence, the same pattern daily. 5 strikes that encoded meaningless information. The date, the weather. Nothing important, just establishing routine. The Germans heard the bell ring every morning. They stopped paying attention. Background noise. Routine. Exactly what Marcel wanted. But the 23 trained villagers listened carefully every morning. They verified they could still interpret the code. They maintained their skills. They waited. Marcel knew waiting was temporary. Saint-Julien sits 15 kilometers from a major rail junction. The bridge south of the village carries freight traffic supporting German operations. The Allies would eventually target that bridge. When that happened, when bombers came, the village would be at risk. Navigation errors happened. Bomb loads dropped early or late. Entire villages disappeared because they were 3 kilometers from the actual target. Marcel could not prevent bombing, but he could provide warning. 4 minutes warning could save hundreds of lives. If people reacted immediately, if they understood the code, if they trusted him, that was the gamble. Whether 300 villagers would drop everything and run when a church bell rang differently, whether they would abandon morning market, leave their goods, trust that an old bellmaker knew something they did not, whether they would believe the code. September 12th, 1943, 6:41 hours. Marcel stands in the tower performing morning chores, checking rope conditions, testing the bell support bearings, standard maintenance. Below in the village square, market day is beginning. Farmers arrange vegetables on wooden tables. Bakers display bread. 3 women sell cheese, made from goats raised in the hills. The German garrison commander, Hauptmann Otto Krebs, walks through the market with 2 soldiers, inspecting, looking for black market activity, checking papers randomly. Krebs is not a cruel man. Not by occupation standards. He does not shoot villagers casually, does not burn homes for minor infractions. He administers occupation with bureaucratic precision. Rules must be followed. Authority must be respected. But violence is used sparingly. The villagers hate him anyway. He represents 4 years of occupation. 4 years of rationing, confiscations, disappeared neighbors, fear. Marcel watches from the tower. He sees Krebs stop at the cheese vendor, examining her permits. The woman, Madame Toulouse, shows papers nervously. Krebs nods. Moves on. Routine interaction. Everything appears normal. At 6:47 hours, Marcel hears something. Very faint. Distant. Almost subliminal. A low-frequency rumble from the west. He moves to the tower's western window. Looks out across the valley. The sky is clear, pale blue, empty. But the sound continues, growing slowly louder. Marcel has heard this sound before. Summer of 1940. When German bombers flew over the valley heading toward Lyon, the deep throb of multiple aircraft engines, synchronized propellers creating a rhythmic pulse. He counts silently. Estimates. The sound is still far away, perhaps 15 kilometers, but closing. Aircraft traveling perhaps 300 kilometers per hour. That gives him approximately 3 minutes before the aircraft are overhead. Maybe 4 if they are slower. He must decide now. Is this a flight passing over the valley toward another target? Or is this an attack run? He studies the sound carefully, listens to how it changes. The pitch is steady, not rising or falling. That means the aircraft are maintaining constant altitude and heading, flying straight toward the valley, toward Saint-Julien. This is an attack run. Marcel moves to the bell. His heart is pounding. His hands are trembling. He forces himself to breathe slowly, to think clearly. He has practiced this moment 800 times, every morning, for 8 months. But practice is not reality. If he is wrong, if he rings the emergency code and nothing happens, he loses credibility. Next time, people will not react. If he is right but rings the code incorrectly, people will misunderstand. They will run the wrong direction or waste time seeking clarification. He must be perfect. 6:49 hours. The sound is louder, unmistakable now. Heavy bombers, multiple aircraft. Marcel grabs 2 mallets, one oak, dense and heavy. One pine, lighter and softer. The oak produces sharp, clear strikes that carry long distances. The pine produces muted tones that emphasize lower overtones. He strikes the bell. Oak, mallet, lower hemisphere. 3 times. Rapid succession. Danger approaching. The sound rolls across the valley. People in the square look up. They have heard this pattern. It is familiar, from 8 months of morning practice. But not at this time. Not with this urgency. Marcel does not pause. He switches to the pine mallet, strikes the upper rim, twice. Then waits exactly 3 seconds, strikes twice more. This pattern encodes directionality. West. The threat comes from the west. In the square, the 23 trained villagers freeze. Madame Toulouse drops a cheese wheel. It rolls across cobblestones. Monsieur Devereux, the baker, steps away from his bread table, stares up at the tower. Others who have not been trained look confused. What is happening? Why is the bell ringing now? Hauptmann Krebs frowns, looks toward the church. The bell ringing is irregular. Unusual, but not obviously threatening. Perhaps the bell ringer is performing maintenance, testing the mechanism. Nothing in the German security briefing mentioned bell codes. Why would they? Bells are cultural artifacts, religious tools, not weapons. Marcel switches back to oak, strikes 5 times, alternating between lower hemisphere and rim. High, low, high, low, High. This is the critical sequence. Take shelter immediately. Aircraft attack imminent. In the square, the trained villagers move. Not running yet, walking quickly. Madame Toulouse abandons her cheese, moves toward her house at the square's edge. Monsieur Devereux calls to his daughter. They begin walking toward the church crypt. The church has a stone basement. Medieval construction. Thick walls. It is the closest shelter. Other trained villagers follow. Their movement is purposeful, but not panicked. They do not explain. They do not shout warnings. They simply move. This is exactly what Marcel taught them. Panic creates chaos. Calm, purposeful movement saves lives. But the untrained villagers do not understand. They see neighbors leaving their market goods, walking away. Why? What is happening? Where are you going? Someone calls. The crypt, Madame Toulouse replies. Go now. Her tone carries absolute certainty. Some people follow, uncertain but willing. Others hesitate. Krebs watches this with growing suspicion. People are leaving the market, moving toward the church. Why? What do they know? Halt, he calls in German. Several villagers stop. Others continue walking. Krebs draws his sidearm, does not point it, simply holds it. Why are you leaving? No one answers. They do not speak German, or pretend not to. The sound from the west is louder now. Krebs hears it. He turns, looks west, sees nothing yet, but the sound is unmistakable. Aircraft, multiple engines. He has heard this sound countless times. But why would Allied aircraft be here? There are no targets in Saint-Julien, just a village, farms, the bridge. The bridge is 3 kilometers south, but navigation errors happen. Krebs understands suddenly. The villagers know. Somehow they know bombers are coming. The bell, the irregular ringing. It was a warning. Alarm! Krebs shouts to his soldiers. Aircraft approaching. Find shelter. The German troops run. Krebs runs toward the church, toward the crypt, the same shelter the villagers are using. There is no time for pride. No time to maintain occupier distance from occupied. Survival is survival. In the tower, Marcel continues ringing. He shifts patterns. Now he is encoding time. 4 strikes, pause. 4 strikes. 4 minutes until arrival, perhaps less. He does not know exactly. He has never done this with real bombers. Only practice. Only estimates based on sound. The mathematics of distance and speed are imprecise when you are measuring by ear. 6:51 hours. The square is emptying. Perhaps 200 people have reached the church crypt or taken shelter in stone buildings. Another 100 are still moving, walking quickly, some running now. The fear is spreading. You do not need to understand the bell code when you see your neighbors running. Panic is contagious. But so is survival instinct. Marcel sees people flooding into the church. Too many people. The crypt will be crowded. But crowded is better than exposed. He rings the final sequence. One massive strike with the oak mallet. As hard as he can, the bell tone explodes across the valley, echoing off hills. This is not code. This is simply sound. As loud as possible. A final alarm for anyone still outside. Then, Marcel drops the mallet. Runs down the tower stairs. He must reach shelter too. He is 61 years old. His knees hurt. The stairs are steep. He stumbles, catches himself, keeps moving. He reaches ground level, runs across the church nave toward the crypt entrance. Father Benedict, the village priest, stands at the crypt door, directing people downstairs, keeping order. How many? Marcel gasps. 250 in the crypt? Perhaps 50 still outside? Not enough. 300 people in the village. 50 still exposed. plus the German soldiers scattered throughout the streets. Marcel wants to go back, to ring the bell again, to pull those last 50 people to safety. But there is no time. The sound from the west has become a roar. 6:53 hours. Marcel reaches the crypt entrance, looks back across the square. He sees Monsieur Gaston, the butcher, running with his 7-year-old son. They are 60 meters from shelter. They will not make it. He sees 3 German soldiers crouching behind a truck. Poor shelter. Better than nothing. He sees an empty market square, abandoned tables, scattered goods, bread and cheese and vegetables lying on cobblestones. 4 years of occupation have taught the village that possessions mean nothing. Life means everything. Father Benedict pulls Marcel's arm. Come, now. They descend into the crypt. The space is medieval. Stone walls 1 meter thick, vaulted ceiling. No windows. Originally built as a burial vault. Now packed with 250 people. Bodies pressed together. Children crying, women praying, men silent and tense. Hauptmann Krebs is there, standing against the far wall with his 2 soldiers. Their weapons are holstered. This is not the moment for occupation authority. This is the moment where occupied and occupier share the same shelter, share the same fear, the same hope that stone walls will be enough. Marcel finds space against a wall. His breathing is ragged. His heart pounds. He closes his eyes, listens. The crypt muffles sound but cannot eliminate it. The roar of engines grows louder, louder. He can feel the vibration through stone. The aircraft are directly overhead now. 6:54 hours. The first bomb falls. Marcel does not hear the bomb falling. No one does. Bombs fall faster than sound. The first indication is the explosion. A sound so loud, it transcends hearing. It becomes physical force. Pressure wave hammering through earth and stone. The crypt floor jumps. Dust falls from ceiling joints. People scream. Children wail. The explosions continue. Bomb after bomb. The Germans are dropping their entire payload. Marcel counts. 12 explosions. 15. 20. The mathematics are horrifying. Each bomb perhaps 250 kilograms of high explosive. 20 bombs equals 5,000 kilograms. 5 tons of explosives hitting a village of 300 people. The crypt shakes with each impact. Stone walls transmit vibration. Marcel feels each explosion through his feet, his back pressed against the wall. He thinks about the bell, the tower, whether it will survive. 300 years of history. The tower has survived wars before. The 100 Years' War, the wars of religion, the Revolution, Napoleon, the First World War. Perhaps it will survive this too. Perhaps not. The explosions stop. Sudden silence. More shocking than the noise. Marcel counts seconds, gets to 40. No more explosions. The aircraft are gone. Bombs expended. Mission complete. Whatever the target was, the Germans have hit it. People in the crypt remain frozen. No one moves. Experience teaches that bombs sometimes fall in multiple waves. One flight drops ordnance. People emerge. Second flight arrives, kills the survivors. Marcel has heard stories from other villages. He forces himself to wait, to count. He reaches 300 seconds. 5 minutes since the last explosion. Father Benedict speaks quietly. I will check outside. Everyone remain here until I verify it is safe. The priest climbs the crypt stairs, opens the door carefully. Daylight streams in. Dust hangs in the air, thick gray clouds. Benedict steps outside. Marcel waits, counts. 60 seconds. Benedict returns. His face is white. His hands are shaking. The square is destroyed, he says quietly. Buildings collapsed, fires burning. But the church stands. The tower stands. Casualties? Marcel asks. I saw 3 bodies. I do not know who. There may be others in the rubble. 3 bodies, out of 300 people. If the 250 people in this crypt had been standing in the market square, 3 bodies would have been 200. The mathematics are brutal. The bell code saved 247 lives, maybe more. People begin emerging from the crypt. Slowly, carefully. They climb stairs into smoke and dust. Marcel steps into the church nave. Sunlight streams through holes in the roof. Debris covers the floor. But the walls stand. The structure is intact. He walks outside. The square is unrecognizable. Every building on the western side is collapsed or burning. Timber frames shattered. Stone walls reduced to rubble. The market tables are gone. Obliterated. Scattered vegetables and bread are burning in small fires. Marcel sees a crater in the center of the square, 4 meters wide, 2 meters deep. A bomb hit directly where Madame Toulouse had been selling cheese 20 minutes earlier. If she had still been standing there, he does not complete the thought. He sees Hauptmann Krebs standing near the church entrance. The German officer is staring at the destruction. His face shows shock, horror, perhaps guilt. Krebs turns to Marcel, makes eye contact, says nothing. What is there to say? You saved our lives too. Your warning sheltered German soldiers alongside French villagers. Thank you feels inadequate. Acknowledgement feels impossible. Krebs nods once. Marcel nods back. They understand each other. In this moment, they are not occupier and occupied. They are simply men who survived. Search parties form immediately. Villagers begin checking collapsed buildings, calling names, listening for responses. The 3 bodies Father Benedict saw are identified. Monsieur Gaston, the butcher, his 7-year-old son Antoine. They were caught in the open, 60 meters from shelter. A 3rd victim, Madame Roche, elderly, who could not move quickly enough. 3 dead. Given the circumstances, given the tonnage of explosives dropped, given that the bombs hit at market hour, 3 dead is a miracle. Marcel knows this. Everyone knows this. But 3 deaths are still 3 deaths. 3 families destroyed, 3 funerals to conduct. He finds Father Benedict organizing rescue efforts. The code worked, Benedict says quietly. You saved the village. Marcel shakes his head. The code gave warning. People saved themselves by listening, by trusting. Will the Germans retaliate? They know now we have a warning system. Marcel considers this. Krebs could report the bell code to his superiors, could demand the bell be destroyed, could arrest Marcel for unauthorized communication. But Krebs was also sheltered by that warning. His soldiers survived because Marcel rang the bell. Would Krebs destroy the system that saved his own life? 7:30 hours. The fires are mostly controlled. The German soldiers help with rescue efforts. This is unusual. Occupying troops typically maintain separation. But boundaries have collapsed this morning. Everyone worked together to survive. Everyone works together now to rescue survivors and recover bodies. Krebs approaches Marcel as he helps clear rubble. The bell, Krebs says in careful French. That was a warning system. Marcel says nothing, does not confirm, does not deny. How long have you been operating this system? 8 months, Marcel admits. No point lying now. Krebs absorbs this. You warned us. You could have let us die. I warned the village. You were in the village. I will not report the system. Krebs says this quietly, firmly. My soldiers survived because of your warning. I will not destroy that. You could be court-martialed for not reporting resistance activity. Perhaps. But I am also responsible for security in this region. A warning system that protects civilians also protects my garrison. Strategically, it benefits German interests to maintain the system. Marcel understands what Krebs is doing. rationalizing, finding official justification for a personal moral choice. Krebs does not want to destroy the bell code because it saved his life. But he cannot admit this directly, so he frames it as strategic calculation. The bell tower was damaged, Krebs continues. Cracks in the structure. It will require repair. I will authorize materials and labor. Consider it compensation for your warning. This is extraordinary. A German officer allocating occupation resources to repair a church used for resistance communication. But Krebs is buying silence. Marcel's silence about what happened today. About how a German garrison commander was saved by the French bell ringer he should have arrested. The repairs will take time, Marcel says carefully. Perhaps the bell will ring irregularly during repairs, for testing purposes. Krebs nods. Of course. Testing is necessary to ensure proper function. I would expect nothing less from a master bellmaker. They have an understanding, an unspoken agreement. Marcel will continue operating the bell code. Krebs will ignore it. Both will pretend this conversation never happened. By afternoon, the true target becomes clear. The bombs were aimed at the railway bridge 3 kilometers south. Navigation error caused the entire payload to drop 3 kilometers short, directly on Saint-Julien. The bridge is undamaged. The German supply line is intact. The village is destroyed. Militarily, the bombing achieved nothing. 12 Heinkel bombers flew from bases in England, crossed occupied France, dropped 5 tons of ordnance, killed 3 civilians, missed their target entirely. By the brutal mathematics of strategic bombing in 1943, this is considered an acceptable outcome. Minimal casualties. Infrastructure intact. Mission parameters achieved even if target was missed. The Allies will not know for weeks that they bombed the wrong location. The Germans will not report it because doing so reveals intelligence about their supply routes. The village will rebuild, the 3 families will mourn. Life will continue. But Marcel's bell code has been tested under real conditions. And it worked. 247 people survived because they understood a message encoded in bronze. Because they trusted a 61-year-old bellmaker who turned a 17th-century church bell into a communication system. Because 4 minutes of warning was enough, Marcel spends the afternoon in the bell tower, assessing damage. The structure has cracks. The support beams shifted slightly, but the bell itself is undamaged. 300 years of bronze, strong enough to survive bombs. He tests the bell carefully, strikes it with his oak mallet. The tone is unchanged, perfect. The overtones are still there. The code still functions. He could ring another warning tomorrow if needed. He will ring another warning. The war is not over. More bombers will come. More navigation errors will happen. Villages throughout occupied Europe face the same threat. Random destruction from aircraft seeking other targets. Most villages have no warning systems, no air raid sirens, no advance notice. They die without knowing death is coming. Saint-Julien will be different. As long as Marcel lives, as long as the bell stands, as long as people remember the code, they will have 4 minutes, maybe 5. Enough time to reach shelter. Enough time to survive. By evening, word spreads to neighboring villages. Saint-Julien was bombed. Most of the village survived because the bell ringer warned them. Other villages send representatives. They want to know about the code. Can Marcel teach them? Can they develop similar systems? Marcel meets with them in the damaged church. Explains the technique. Strike points. Mallet types. Overtone patterns. Rhythm sequences. He shares everything. This is not his secret. This is survival knowledge. It belongs to anyone who can use it. Over the following months, 17 villages in the region developed bell codes, each slightly different, each adapted to local bell characteristics and village geography. but all based on Marcel's fundamental principle. Bells do not simply ring, they speak. If you teach people to listen. By June 1944, when Allied forces land in Normandy and begin pushing east, the Bell network saves an estimated 600 lives. Villages receive warning of approaching aircraft, of artillery bombardments, of tank movements. The bells ring their codes. People shelter. Survival rates increase. The Germans never fully understand what is happening. They hear bells ringing, church activities, cultural traditions. They do not realize they are hearing a resistance communication network operating in plain sight. By August 1944, Allied forces liberate the region. The occupation ends. The bell codes are no longer needed. But they are not forgotten. Saint-Julien places a plaque in the church tower. It reads simply, "In memory of those who listened." Marcel lives until 1978. He maintains the bell until his death at age 96. He trains his grandson in the echo code, not because it is needed, because it should be remembered, because future generations should know that survival sometimes depends on listening carefully, on trusting knowledge over fear, on believing that an old man with a bronze bell might know something worth hearing. The bell still stands, still rings. Tourists visit Saint-Julien, admire the medieval tower, photograph the ancient bell. They hear the beautiful tones, the perfect overtones. They do not know they are hearing a language, a code that saved 247 lives on September 12, 1943. But the village knows. The families who survived know. And every September 12th, at exactly 6:50 hours, the bell rings a specific pattern. 3 rapid strikes on the lower hemisphere, 2 strikes on the upper rim, 5 strikes alternating high and low. The pattern means danger approaching, direction west. Take shelter immediately. No danger approaches now. The sky is peaceful. But the bell remembers. The village remembers. And the echo carries across the valley. A voice in bronze speaking to those who learn to listen. Sometimes that is enough.